and welcome. So I have decided to try a few different ways of making the floor for the farmhouse, for the kitchen. And one of them was I took a piece of foam board and I scored lines every ½ inch to make little tiles. And yes, I used a pen because I couldn't find my pencil, but this will all be covered up with paint and you'll never see it. Now the problem is, I took the paper layer off the one side of the foam board and it's bending on me, which I knew it would do. And so to try to remedy that, I am going to take some just matte Mod Podge and I'm going to go over the back side of it. Now it's going to ripple the paper, but I'm hoping that when it dries, it will lay much flatter. Now I'm not worried really if it doesn't lay perfectly flat because I'm going to put it in with double-sided tape. And that way if the wiring ever needs to be accessed, it can be peeled back up instead of having to glue it, which would be a lot harder if you had to fix the wiring. So, oh my gosh, if I can get this open. There we go. I'm just going to paint a layer of that over the back. This is not the brush I wanted. I wanted a much bigger brush. Just a sec. I'll use this one. These are brushes I got at Walmart. They weren't overly expensive. But once you use them for paint a couple times, they get kind of bad. They're not very good brushes, but like I said, I didn't pay a whole lot for them. So let's try this, and we'll let it dry and see what happens. So we're out at the farmhouse, and another thought I had was I had ordered these little tiles from Minimum World, and they're going to be used for Grandma's patio on her house when we get that far. And I thought, well, maybe I could use something like that. And I think they do have the square ones also, but I'm not sure. The hexagon ones like this, I don't think are the answer. And they're not in there very well, but it's a little hard to place them without glue or grout and get them to stay where you want them. But I just put in a few just to give you an idea. So let me know what you think about that in the comments. If I were to do this, I would have to order more from Minimum World, and that takes at least 2 weeks, and I have to spend a minimum of $50 if I want to get free shipping. So anyway, just another thought. So now that the Mod Podge is dry, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a coat of the Waverly chalk paint called Mineral. And I want to try to get it down into the cracks so that when I put my top coat on, it'll show through kind of like a mortar. I wasn't really planning on using a mortar type. You know, I wanted them more together, but I realized in using a bone folder and the foam part of the foam board that, yeah, it was going to make depressions enough that I would probably have to plan for some sort of mortar around it. So I like the Mineral because it kind of looks like a mortar or cement in a way. So that's what I'm going to be using, and I'm going to make sure I work it down into all the little crevices in between my blocks. This is a purely experimental, and we'll see what happens. By the way, if it looks like I'm painting a little weird, I cut the heck out of my finger and it's swollen and it hurts. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but this is really, it's kind of really making the tiles pop out. And I realize a lot of this is going to get covered when I do the tiles, but I can always go back and fill in my lines. Making sure I'm going both ways, really get it down into those little crevices. So as I said, this is just an experiment. The chalk paint is dry. I've cut up some makeup sponges, which is what I want to use to apply these colors. And what I'm going to do is just start dabbing color all over the tiles. And I'm going to be using quite a range of colors because I don't want this to just be the flower pot terracotta color. So let's see what happens. So first I'm just taking a little bit of, I don't want a lot, raw umber, and burnt umber, and I'm just going to start dabbing it on the tiles. I have a feeling this is going to be a rather lengthy process, and I don't even know if it's going to work. But we're going to try it, see what happens. It's not coming out very dark. And you know I like to build up my colors in layers. If I'm going light, I like to start with dark, and if I'm going dark, I like to start with light. Just kind of how I am. Now I won't be putting this on every tile. And it's getting down into the middles where I, oops, almost stuck that in the actual terracotta color, which is very orange. So I may be mixing it with another color. I'm not sure yet. Not all of these colors will be on each tile. Okay, that's it for now. I'm going to see how this dries. This is pretty much dried now. Originally, it was coming out a little too dark. You saw what it looked like in the end, and I wanted a little more of the orange. So, off camera, I took some of my terracotta and I just put it with some nutmeg brown, and I went over the whole thing to kind of give it a little more orange appearance. And now what I'm going to do, oh, if I can get it, there we go. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give this whole thing a coat of Mod Podge. Just to seal in my color, because I think I'm going to try grouting it. I have never done that before, but we'll see how that goes. I want to be able to wipe any grout I mix up off of it. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to use yet for grout, but we'll get it figured out. Now, I didn't do the edges of this because I'm planning on putting edging around my dollhouse anyway, so that won't be a problem. And this one side is kind of not, it's very rough due to the little pills of styrofoam that were in this piece of foam core. So that's going to be up against the wall that goes to the dining room. Now, the only problem I see that I have right now is that this is just a little higher than my popsicle stick floor that I have in the dining room of the house. And I will figure out a way to work that out so that everything looks pretty even. Sometimes when you go from room to room, especially in older houses, you have a little raised area. And this isn't big enough to make a step. So we'll just have to work it out. Alright, well, our floor is nice and dry. I'm making a mess with the baking soda. I've added baking soda to the mineral chalk paint, and I'm hoping I didn't add too much. I've not done this before. So, moment of truth. And this is a lot more orange in person than I think it shows up on the camera. Alright, I'm nervous about this. Here goes. Push it down into my lines. And since I've not done it before, I'm going to go just a tiny bit at a time. I think I might need to add a little more paint to this. But let's see what happens when I start wiping it away. Oh yeah, I should have added way more paint to this. Well, it's starting to come off. Just have to wipe really hard and obviously really quick. I think I'm going to need something more than just these baby wipes. So I may have to go find an old rag and use that. Because I don't want this to set up on my floor, leaving the mess of having... Yeah, I don't think this is going to work. I might have gone through a lot of baby wipes, I think. It looks like it's coming out well. Maybe just use not quite so much of the paint and baking soda that I mixed up. it's working. Maybe we'll just go a little, I'm going to be cautious, so I'll fast forward this. I've got some problems and I don't know. I think I've accidentally wiped this back to its original state of being the foam. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this off camera and I'll catch up with you when I'm done. Well, I'm back with you and I have learned a few lessons along the way. First of all, I have learned that if I'm going to do something like this, I'm not going to be dumb enough to mix baking soda with chalk paint because I totally forgot just exactly how abrasive baking soda is, and chalk paint also has its, well, it's got chalk. So I have some areas I have to fix, and that is my own fault, and I should have been thinking. So what I did for the rest of it was I just went over it with straight chalk paint. Now, I'm sorry about the glare because I've got some really bad glare going on here. But I also forgot that the wet wipes are very wet. And if I were to do this again, I would definitely not use wet wipes. I would use a cloth that was dampened but not wet, because I'm still cleaning up some. Now, some of this will be okay because it's an old house and this floor was put in a long time ago. But if I were to do it again and I wanted a nice floor, the chalk paint was fine by itself. It didn't need the baking soda. I just wanted it to look like real grout, which it wasn't going to do anyway because it's so tiny you'd never notice. So there's that. Yeah. I would definitely not use wet wipes, or I would let them dry out a while, because I used this many wet wipes, and once you go over the chalk paint with the wet wipe, it's on there. So you have to keep finding the white spots on the wet wipe, and it's a pain, and it's not fun, and yeah, I would definitely let them dry out if I was going to use those. I still have a little bit of residue, but my chalk paint isn't completely dry in spots. I don't know if I can get it off now. It's a good thing. I want this to have a very homey feel, a very loved and used feel, and that. So please learn from my mistakes. So I will be touching up these spots on the floor. I'm not going to make you watch me do that. And then I'm going to go and put it in the dollhouse and see how it looks. Like I said, I'm not really bothered by the fact that it looks more worn, except for these spots, of course. And that was just me going way too hard with the wet wipe and the chalk paint, and the fact the wet wipe was so wet. So please learn by my mistakes. This is the first time I've ever done this, and I've not even done it in real life, although we will be hopefully redoing my bathroom before winter sets in. So I guess I'm not using terracotta tiles, but I do want to put some tile or something in there, especially the floor. So yeah, learn by my mistakes. I'll touch this up, and I I think I'm going to end this video here. I've definitely decided I'm going to go ahead with the antique parchment in the walls because I feel that it's going to go with the living room, which is also the antique parchment. And I do want to do some wall tiles, but they won't be like this. Hopefully I've learned. And I want this kitchen to be very warm and inviting. I think I'm going to go with a colored cabinetry in there because I think that's just going to really, really, really give it that homey, warm, inviting feel that I really want for this kitchen. So with that, I'm going to leave it here and we'll see you again soon. The boho video will be up. I don't know how long it's going to be because right now on that I'm to a point where I just kind of adding the final touches. And I will be doing the floor, and you've watched me do floors before. You probably watched a million people do floors, and you've probably done your own floors. So I may do a little bit of that with you, but I'm not going to make you sit through the whole process of that. We're going to put the wood around the windows. I've kind of gone away from the shutter idea simply because they're not going to be, it's not going to be so I can open and close them. This is a room box. I'm not going to be doing a lot to it. Once it's done, it's done. So yeah, that's where we're at with that. So I will be back when we install those wooden pieces, and I will probably do a little bit of flooring with you on that one. So no, I haven't even got it done yet. I've been working outside, and I'm almost caught up with everything I think I need to do. So, and they're saying rain later today, so I've got to get going on that too. But the boho video will be up later. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.